Welcome to Chemical Studies. This is Mrs. Yedowitz, and in this presentation, I'm going to go over some basic ideas about what this course is for and what we're going to be accomplishing, as well as some basic policies for how the classroom gets run. In terms of our classroom etiquette and our classroom rules, most of our rules are based on the idea that we are actually in a laboratory. The entire classroom is a laboratory that just happens to have desks in it. So in order for everyone to be safe and focused and working, there's a few things that we have to follow. The very first one is that cell phones are incredibly distracting, and we've had a really big problem, particularly recently, with students being on their phones far too much. And for that reason, like if a kid checks their phone in the middle of a lab and they lose their focus, they could have a lab accident. Also, we're going to be walking through work that gets them up to a pretty high level and involves a lot of math. So it's really important that they be able to stay clear-headed and focused without getting distracted. So I asked them to surrender their phone when they come in the room, turn off the sound, and leave it in a pocket that matches the number on their desk. They chose their seats at the beginning of the year, and they will be able to put their phone in that numbered pocket because of the district's new policy that they have to warn us ahead of time when we will be having drills. I will know that we are on a drill and that kids do not need their phones because we are not going to have a real emergency. In the event of an emergency, their cell phones get returned to them immediately, and then we proceed with whatever steps we need to take in that emergency. Our general classroom rules, I think, are pretty basic. Essentially, they shouldn't have their phone. They should also not have their headphones on or their AirPods in their ears. Um, we don't allow them to listen to music while they're working, and that is because studies have shown that music actually impairs the language center of your brain and keeps it from being able to process what you're trying to understand. So it's also obviously a safety concern when we're doing lab work, and chem studies kids will be doing lab work. So it's really important that they get out of that habit of having their headphones on. It's also school policy in our code of conduct that headphones should not be on students in between classes or during classes. So it's possible that they will get confiscated by administrators if kids have them on in the hallway. So this is true in our room as well. It is 100% super, super important that students in our classroom especially are supportive of each other. I'm going to ask them to do some really difficult material. I'm also going to ask them to reflect a lot on how they're going to grow as learners in my classroom. And that means that they can't have a friend or someone who claims to be their friend, or people just can't pick on each other and bully each other. Kids are not going to feel comfortable taking risks and doing difficult things in front of people if they don't feel comfortable, or if they're in the middle of a fight. So they need to leave that stuff outside the classroom. And even if they think it's a joke, they really have to be respectful to each other and to me so that we can build a really strong relationship. Also, supplies in my room. We are one of the lab classrooms in the building that's still in pretty good shape. We have a lot of breakable supplies. We have a very, very tight budget. The budget barely passed for Yonkers Public Schools this year. They had to take out a big loan to make the budget work. And so we cannot buy supplies. We were told for the last 2 years that there is no money in the budget for science supplies. So the supplies are precious. And some of them have been bought with my own money because it's really important to me that the kids have everything they need in order to succeed and to have really good learning experiences. So I'm going to ask them to please, not even the basic stuff that kids do when they're bored. Please don't doodle on things. Please don't vandalize things. Please don't be careless with things in the classroom. I might take it personally. And so I asked them as part of that building that relationship with me to please be really respectful of the items that are in the classroom because a lot of it is actually my personal property. And so as part of us building a respectful relationship, we try to respect each other's property. So why did we develop this class? It is true that everybody moves at a different pace. And one of the trickiest parts about doing Montessori is that Montessori at the high school level is very tough since we're often accountable to the state to finish by a certain time and have all the kids ready at the same time for a big state test. And typically, Montessori classes are allowed to move at their own pace and are mixed grade level. So that can mean that not everybody reaches a Regents chemistry class or a higher level academic class with the same understandings because everyone's moving at a slightly different pace. So chemical studies is a class you may have decided to take or you may have been placed in to give you that opportunity to build some really good foundational skills that can get you through more than just Regents chemistry, but a lot more than this. So my story is that I spent the first 14 years of my career doing academic intervention. I ran the tutoring center at Rye High School, and it was a very successful program. So very successful schools usually have a tremendous amount of support for their kids. So over those 14 years, I learned a lot of skills that are really revolve around making sure that kids are academically successful and that they are able to find out why they're not successful, make a plan, and reevaluate and reach their goals. So we were very we were very good at that. We had about a 98% rate of turning students around from being students who failed or students who struggled to students who were doing well and passing their classes. So that's my story of how I got to into the teaching profession. So I brought that with me when I became a regular classroom teacher. And chemical studies is really one of my best opportunities to use all of the skills I learned in that 14 years to make sure that kids get the best opportunity to do everything that they can to enjoy learning again and also to enjoy science classes again. So we're going to really take a serious look at the beginning of the year, how schools are set up, how kids have been interacting with their academic life, how it's interacting and impacting their identity, and how they're going to move into the future of their academic career. So they're in 10th grade, most of my chem studies kids, and they're about to head into their junior year of preparing to do college applications or deciding what direction they think they're going to head in after high school. And so we're going to spend a lot of time helping them to build up the skills that they need and the identity they need as a learner to be successful after they leave us, either to be college bound, to be headed into a certification program, to be entering into the trade they want to pursue. So all of these skills have to do with that. We're going to be using something called 360 boards, which the kids have now been introduced to. The 360 boards are boards that literally wrap around most of my classroom. They are blackboards and whiteboards, and we will be up at the boards. Every student gets their own board, and when they're asked to work on tasks that are difficult, especially problem-solving tasks, learning new skills, they will be up at the board doing that at their own space in a way that allows me to walk around the room and see where they are, how they're doing, and interact with them if they need help. It also allows me to look around the room very quickly and see if everyone has the same misunderstandings so that I can bring the group back together to do more instruction to help them figure out what they're doing wrong. And we're also going to spend a lot of time figuring out what their goals are and to build the habits and skills so that they can not just be successful in this class, but be successful later on. So this is this is a tough transition for a lot of our students. They should already be used to active learning, but they still will have a little bit of a challenge, especially if they're with me early in the morning or they just, came from a class where they feel like they were really tired or they just took a test. They will have to jump right in a lot of times when they come into my room. They can't just sit at their desk and stare at me. So that's one of the reasons why we use the 360 boards is the kids are standing up and moving around the room and working. And we do a lot of lab work, particularly from quarter 2 and on, and that gets the kids moving and thinking to approach work. So I design everything that I do to prepare them for that, and also everything I do, I pretty much design based on research. All right, so some quick overviews on grading. I grade using what's known as a whole points system. This is very different than how most teachers grade. Most teachers grade using something called weighted averages, where after all the work is done at the end of a quarter, the teacher takes only a percentage of each category of work and counts that towards their total grade. That is actually how their yearly grades are also calculated. A percentage of each marking period is taken and then all added together to calculate their final grade for the year. I don't grade that way. I tended to find that there was a cycle going on that I didn't like, and that was students had trouble getting assignments done. They would maybe not hand in projects or not do homework. And so teachers began to make homework and projects worth less points. So they might do hours and hours of homework, but then the teacher only counts like 10% of it because some kids are not doing it at all. And if they counted it at full value, they would fail the class. But then that also, we kind of got into a place where if if the homework wasn't very valuable, then we weren't rewarding the kids who were doing all the work. And the kids who didn't do the work had no motivation to do it because they knew that there weren't going to be that much of a consequence for not doing it. And so when we switch to a whole point system, all the points that are given for all the assignments, and those are listed on the work plan, which I go over in the other video, have the same value. So that means that the number of points you got on a quiz are worth the same amount as the points that you got on a homework assignment. So essentially, all the work that you can get done, those points count. And it doesn't matter in what context they get done. So for this reason, often you can do very well in my class, even if you don't do well on quizzes and tests, if you're very diligent and you get all your work done, because you'll have enough points to pass. Usually the work for this class is between 700 and 1,000 points in total for each marking period. Their grade is based on how many points they earned out of that total. So if the total is 1,000 and they got 900, they have a 90. If the total is 1,000, they got 800 points, they have an 80. So the more work they don't do, the fewer points they'll have for me to get a grade. And that's really important that they feel motivated to do as much work as they can. And the point system, I think, also helps. It helps to motivate them. It also helps them to understand where they stand, right? It's very easy for them to know that they should not skip an assignment that's worth 100 points because that's 10% of their whole grade. So the whole point system is a better system really for the kids. And also you're going to see on the work plan that I skew assignment values, meaning I give a lot of points for things that I think are really hard for the kids to do or that really require a lot of time and effort on their part because that's the reward that they should get for putting in that work. I should give them that reward for getting it done. All right. So essentially, bottom line with this policy is if you don't work, you don't have any points. If you don't have any points, you don't have a grade. So it's really important that you always get your work done. And if you're turning in classwork is done in class. So if you see it labeled that way in PowerSchool, you should be aware that if your child has zeros for that, they've either been absent too much or they haven't been handing their work in even though they're present in the classroom. So that's a red flag you may want to watch out for. Supplies are very simple for my class. This year, we're going to go with just one composition notebook. It needs to be for chem studies only and pens. We don't work in pencil in my class for a whole bunch of reasons, but it's ink only. They can 100% use highlighters and colored pen if they would like, because they're going to learn a lot about note taking for this course. But it is optional. So I know some supplies can be really expensive. They basically just need a composition notebook and a pen. I do grade 360 board work as classwork. It depends on how much practice they've had at it, but I want them to know upfront they're not being graded on whether or not they have the right answer. And I think that's important that they know that, partially because that is one of the reasons why they feel motivated to copy, and then that they're missing an opportunity to learn. So what I'm really looking for when I'm watching students who are doing 360 work is I'm looking to see that they're prepared. So if they did the work ahead of time that they needed to be able to get up to the board and do practice, they're probably looking in their notebook at their notes, or at their answers to an assignment that they did. They are actively engaged. They're not standing around the room chatting. They might be reflecting, they could be asking me questions, they can also collaborate with their peers. So if I'm about to yell at a kid for her, or I already have yelled at a kid for talking, and I walk over and I realize that the conversation is them actually discussing or arguing over why one of them did it the right way, why one of them did it the wrong way, and then explaining the materials to them, that's fantastic. That is one of their opportunities for them to process information so that they can um, have a process of improving. So they're going to be demonstrating to me when they get up to the board multiple times in a row whether or not they're improving by showing me that they're taking advice and feedback and trying to catch up on material and do things differently. So how do you do that? When they come in, there will be questions either posted on the board or handed to them when they come in. Everybody gets their own spot. They will pick a spot on the first day of board work and decide if they're going to go chalk or marker board. Everybody has about maybe like a 2-foot spot, and they can write in that whole spot. So as they have to go straight to work, put their bag down at their desk and go right up to their spot. I will be cruising around checking to see how things are going. And they should have their notes with them. If I'm doing work that is like math work that we've been working on for a long time, they are allowed to have stuff with them. If it's something I've asked them to memorize, then I may ask them to go up to the boards and test to see if they know it yet. So they should be able to have materials with them. This is one of the reasons why being prepared is important. I don't typically accept work late. At the Regents level, I don't accept work late at all. In the Chem Studies level, I understand that they are still working on their executive functioning, so I will give them a 2-day grace period on regular homework assignments, but not projects. And not for 360 board days. So if it's a 360 board day and you show up unprepared and then you have to like go to your spot and stand there and not do anything because you didn't come with the work, that sort of ruins the whole 360 board day for you and basically for everyone around you. So it's really important that on 360 board days, people come in prepared. Those will be posted on the work plan ahead of time so that they know. Projects, unfortunately, often run very close to the deadlines for the ends of marking periods when I have to turn my grades in. And so for that reason also, and they're also very time consuming to grade. So in order for me to really be able to look at a student's project and give them a fair grade, I would like them to be given in on time. If they really need extra time, something bad happened or they got sick, if a parent emails me, I will give them an extension if I can. If I can't because it's the end of the marking period, then we get into possibly having to give incompletes and that kind of stuff. So projects will go up on my teacher page as a separate link where you'll get a folder, and all of the materials for that project will be in that folder, so you'll be able to see them. I always break projects into steps to help them with their executive functioning, and I will often have them complete some of the steps or all of the steps during class time. I will also remind them, I will help them with planning, and I will help them to understand the timeline so that they can pace their work. So I will guide them through in-class research processes, provide details, examples of how work should be done. All of that stuff will be available because I understand that one of the things that we're trying to learn together is how to be better at executive functioning. So I hope this presentation answers all your questions. If not, please go to my teacher page and email me